BBC Television presents...
Hancock.
Look what I found in the garden, Sid.
In whose garden?
You know, our garden. The green thing full of trees and flowers. What you see when you go out the magic door in the kitchen.
I didn't know we had a magic door in the kitchen.
Yes, Sid. Haven't you ever been into the garden at number 23 Railway Cuttings?
No, I didn't know we had one. You should have told me.
I distinctly remember asking you to cut the grass in 1996, Sid.
Yeah, but I was busy. Go on, you're dying to tell me. What did you find in the garden underneath all that long grass, Hancock?
Only an old casket, but it's got a book in it.
So what? You found a library book. Is that all? Take it back. I expect it's long overdue.
Yes, 100 years overdue by the look of it. It's full of funny old words, Sid.
I know some funny old words, Hancock. Try me out on some.
All right, here goes. Whence'th whoevereth findeth this book, do not readeth it. On paineth of death. There's an awful lot of F's in it, Sid.
Yeah, sounds riveting. Take it back, give it to the library, pay your fine and apologise.
No, I'm not giving this one to the library, Sid. I'm going to ring an old professor friend of mine. It might be something special that we ought to hang on to. Old books can be valuable.
What old professor friend? You don't know any professors.
Au contraire, Sid. I met him down the East Cheam Arms. He's a professor of chemistry.
Chemistry? That's no good. What's he going to know about that book? You need a professor of libraries and things.
He can read, can't he?
I suppose so. Why don't you ask me about that book?
It's all right, Sid. We don't need any knowledgeable opinions on the Beano and the sporting life. Thank you very much.
I read the Daily Express as well. Hand it over. When's the professor coming over?
Hang on to the book, Sid. I'll give him a ring.
Oh, good evening, Mr. Hancock. I found a rare book. There's nothing I like snuggling up to in bed more than a nice musty old book.
You've never met Barbara Windsor, have you, Professor?
Oh, I bet you could write a steamy novel full of gratuitous innuendo, Mr. James.
Don't take any notice of Sid, Professor Twissington Postlethwaite. I've got something a bit more eyebrow for you. A bit more to your taste, shall we say. Sid, on the other hand, is very lowbrow. It's the wrinkles, you know. He can't help it.
Oh, that's me. I've got a very high brow, you know. Let me have a look at it. Let the dog see the rabbit.
Rabbit? It's not Watership Down, Professor. It's very old. I wouldn't be surprised if it predates writing.
Oh, don't be a muffin. I'm not sure any books were written before writing was invented.
Of course. How silly of me. It's probably an early Shakespeare.
Now, let me see. Oh, yes, it is old. This could be quite a discovery. Let's see what it says. This book is by Edward the Professor. No, wait a minute, that's me. No, Edward the Confessor.
Who's Edward the Confessor when he's at home? Was he a friend of William the Conqueror or something?
Oh, that's not far out, Mr. James. He was King of England in 1042, a pious and noble saint, but a trifle saucy. He was a bit of a boy, by all accounts. William did all the conquering, and poor old Edward, with all his moral baggage, did all the confessing.
So he must have lived here at number 23 Railway Cutting.
What, in this bloody hovel? Oh, you must be joking. He must have lived in a beautiful palace. Not this slum. He was a king, not a bloody beggar.
Do you mind? Number 23 Railway Cuttings has its moments, Professor. It's a very serviceable little home for Sid and me. A little on the bijou side, but it has its views over the gasworks. You can see France on a good day.
Well, as cramped as it is, it doesn't seem to have cramped Mr. James' style, does it?
So now you've had a chance to look at the book, Professor. What's it all about?
Oh, it's all about nuns. I'm only on page 3, but he's seduced a couple of dozen, the dirty beast.
So all the time he's doing it, Professor, he's confessing it. Weeping and a-wailing, gnashing his teeth and flagellating himself.
You don't half exaggerate, don't you? I think he's just enjoying himself.
Now we know it's a mucky book, it must be worth something. Give it to the Sun and they can serialise it.
If what he's saying is true, this book could be worth millions. There would be film rights and everything.
And we could do a carry-on film. Carry on confessing or carry on up the confessional.
I don't think so. It would be a little bit too rich. Even for the carry-on boys, it would be a triple X.
Yes, stick your fingers in your ears, Sid. Look, Professor, he's taking notes.
I don't think I should reveal any more. These are private confessions. They're not for the eyes and ears of we commoners.
Go on, Professor Twistington Postlethwaite. We could do with a laugh. Is it rumpy-pumpy and stuff? I'll show it to Barbara Windsor.
I'm sorry, I'll have to show it to a colleague. A Professor Jakes. She's an ex-nun, you know. Very experienced. She'll know whether this incendiary little book is too hot for the Catholic Church to handle. We don't want you burnt at the stake, do we, Mr. Hancock?
Oh yes, Professor Twistington Postlethwaite. It's definitely Edward the Confessor's handwriting. And I suppose the proof is all these flaming confessions, isn't it?
Yes, he hardly stopped confessing, poor man. I don't think he had much time for anything else. There were hundreds of volumes of confessions, apparently, but he had 500 of them destroyed just before he died to protect the reputation of people he knew. This is the only surviving copy, describing the time between January 1056 and February 1056.
He's a man after me own heart.
Just out of interest, Professor, on a scale of 1 to 10, how saucy is it? I wouldn't mind having a read. Any pictures?
I'm sorry, Tony. This will still have to be censored. It could send men mad. It's got to go before Dominic Cummings. He'll decide whether it's weird enough for the average working man to read.
Yes, Mr. Hancock. There may still be descendants of those involved in the frolics, whose reputation needs to be protected. For example, Theresa May.
Theresa's not in there, is she? Atta girl. Go on, let's have a read. It's my book. Edward ran through a field of wheat with her. I bet she's a bit more of a goer than she lets on, you know.
Can stop drooling, Mr. Hancock. It wasn't Theresa. It was a distant ancestor. Anyway, it was much worse than I could ever possibly tell you. The language is filthy. I'm so disgusting. I can hardly turn the pages over fast enough.
Then there's the Queen.
Oh, God, don't tell me Your Majesty's been at it as well.
Shush, Professor Jakes. No one must know about our lovely monarch. She mustn't be sullied with the muck of Edward the Confessor.
Come on out with it, Professor. This is turning out to be a real bodice ripper, isn't it, Sid?
No, my lips are sealed. Cross my heart and hope to die Phoenix. Oh, all right. Yes, she's on page 11 to 87. Our ancestor, the Blessed Elizabeth of Windsor. She was one of his favourite concubines.
So our Queen is illegitimate, born on the wrong side of the blanket, so to speak.
I don't think they had blankets in those days. More likely on the wrong side of a bearskin rug. I mustn't say any more. It could cause a constitutional crisis.
But it's worse than that. Edward had more than one concubine. It makes matters very complicated as to who the rightful heir to the throne actually is.
What did he have, 2 or 3? How many concubines did he have?
Several hundred to be precise. But we're still counting. We've only got to page 10.
Struth, he must have been worn out, poor fellow.
He died young and exhausted, thrown away like an old rag.
Or a queen bee that has just populated a whole hive.
So he died young in his 40s, did he?
No, 90 and a half to be precise. It was tragic, but he came out the bat for England, didn't he?
Sounds like he did a bit too much flaming batting, if you ask me.
So, who is the real heir to the throne of England?
I shouldn't be discussing this with you. It needs to go before the Court of Archbishops, and then to the House of Lords, then Dominic Cummings, then Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump.
But we do think his favourite courtesan was Doreen Markle.
That name rings a bell. Where have I heard that before?
It's not Meghan Markle's ancestor, is it? Harry's wife.
Oh, shh, Professor Twistington Postlethwaite. We must say no more. No one must know. It could lead to the overthrow of the country.
Don't worry, Professor, our lips are sealed. However, could I just have a quick look at some of the pictures?
So it could mean that Meghan Markle is our rightful queen and not Queen Elizabeth I.
Precisely, Mr. James. Harry and Meghan will have to come back, and the Windsors will have to move out.
Well, it's a good job I found it in the garden, isn't it? A wrong has been righted. Here's to Queen Meghan the First. Hurrah! Hurrah!
But I think you'll find, Mr. Hancock, you just can't overthrow the monarchy. That's treason. You've already been burnt by the Pope, and now you're going to be hung by the monarchs.
No, that could be nasty. Oh, but oh dear, I've just read Edward's last confession.
My God, what's in it this time? I'm not in more trouble, am I?
No, the silly bugger's just confessed to making the whole flaming book up.